feel so delighted to introduce Professor Tanusha Raniga. Professor Tanusha Raniga teaches social work and community development at the University of Johannesburg. She is a C2 NRF-rated researcher. She is actively involved in research primarily in the area of social protection policy, feminization of poverty, and sustainable livelihood. She has published widely in national and international journals and has presented at numerous social work conferences. Her teaching areas include social policy, community development, management, and integrated social and economic development. With a round of applause, over to you, Professor Tanusha, on this African Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Olu. I really appreciate the introduction. And thank you to the organizers of the Africa Day presentations this morning. So thank you in particular to the Africa Social Work Network organizers. I would like to just quickly share my screen. So colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to really just talk about some of the work and the research that I'm doing in the area of women in the informal economy in particular. The title of my presentation today is really on human, social and economic capital development, the role of women in the economy. So we know that, the role of women in African economies has been a very important concern for us as social work practitioners and academics and policymakers. Women across global South countries are unable to secure productive employment in the formal work sector and end up really working in the informal economy out of necessity rather than choice. I'll talk from the perspective of where we come from in South Africa. The economic growth, especially over the pre-COVID and within the COVID period from March 2020, we've seen that economic growth has really disguised the deepening gender inequality and structural problems which has perpetuated poverty amongst women, which I refer to as feminization of poverty. So my argument is that one of the key ways of really making the economy work is simply to discourage the pathological discourse that seems to be dominant, that poor women remain poor because they are trapped in the informal economy and that they need to be protected and rescued. So to set the context in terms of the policies and legislation in South Africa, we've grounded using the white paper on social welfare, the white paper on local government, the cooperative development policy, and the National Development Plan Vision 2030, which supports pro-poor and pro-economic growth objectives, thus simultaneously integrating psychosocial support and economic imperatives for women who work in the informal economy. But I must say, while the rollout, there seems to be a lot of disturbance in the background. Sorry, can you mute? So while the rollout of these policies are commendable, the gaps remain that translating these policy directives into meaningful transformative action, such as access to microcredit for women, collective organization, and business training for women is really, it needs to be given imperative support by policymakers and social workers. Sorry, I'm hearing some noise in the background, which is quite distracting.
Yes, I'm trying to. Tracy, you can hear me?
Mute Tracy, please.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm unable to Tracy from here. Tracy, can you hear us?
Can I continue, colleagues?
Yes, I think you
Yes.
can
Yes,
continue now.
yes.
Okay. So my argument is that women are disadvantaged in the workplace in terms of access to productive employment in the formal work sector. And that while women's participation in the formal economy has increased over the past 2 decades, the income paid to women continues to be lower than those of men. And we see this in the ILO report that a significant proportion of women that work in the formal economy are able to sustain income, but there's a greater percentage of women working to secure income through cross-border trading, and business and entrepreneurship activities in the informal economy. And this forms the basis of the focus of much of my own research. I want to now just share with you some of the recent research that I've done in 2 provinces in South Africa, in Limpopo and in KZN, in Gauteng. So these were the guiding questions for my research, which looked at livelihood practices through which African women survive in the informal economy. The context was a rural community called Makushane in Limpopo and a low-income community called Ivory Park in Gauteng. And these are two communities that have high rates of poverty and economic marginalization, and that, it shapes how women experience their work, both in terms of looking at their day-to-day survival strategies and how the broader political and social context really impacts their daily lives. So I used snowball sampling to really just select the women who worked in the informal economy. They were either working on contract or as informal traders, and they were non-tax-paying members who did not receive much benefits such as pension or medical contributions from the employer. And I had a total of 16 women, so 8 women from each of the communities that participated in the research. And I did 2 in-depth interviews with the women. So some of their feedback, and this has come from many other studies that I've also done some research around, is that developmental and transformative interventions have unleashed the creative human capital and entrepreneurial skills of unemployed women who reside in low-income communities. So women acknowledged in the study that their capabilities and their development and their self-confidence and skills were really enhanced by working together and pooling their strengths and resources, especially during the COVID pandemic period. And that many of the women who worked as street vendors had gained a lot from sharing their skills, sharing their innovative marketing skills using Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, and YouTube to really just enhance their own skills and capabilities, as well as their social business relations with customers. But they also talked about financial struggles. And we know that in Africa, women who are entrepreneurs remain economically, spatially, and racially marginalized from the mainstream formal economy. And these are some of the quotes that were shared by the women in my study. They also talked about social capital challenges and that mobilizing women entrepreneurs together, creating a sense of solidarity using online spaces for engagement, and then claiming their positions in various business forums within the 2 areas of municipality or local government areas was really seen as good strategies to really enhance their associations and social capital networks. And they also talked about their visions for claiming and sharing their physical resources, business resources, organizing collective events and action for advocating and lobbying for changes to informal trading regulations and sustaining their livelihood activities. So a lot of my work in my study really resonates with what Professor Leila Patel says, that successful realization of economic goals requires access to microcredit and promoting microenterprise as part of a holistic social development agenda to address the feminization of poverty. So, what does this mean for us as social workers? Women's contribution to the informal economy is an important source of income as a survivalist economic activity, which is really dependent on resources and social networks and connections upon which the woman can draw. Policymakers should put in place systems that can ameliorate existing power imbalances and reduce gender injustice in the economy. There is an urgent need for national and provincial policies to include the concerns of women who are self-employed and who work as entrepreneurs to ensure that they have access to trading permits and microcredit to sustain their business activities. And I'd like to stop there. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Yeah, excellent, excellent, Professor Tanusha. I feel so. Those are critical to the point. Precarious work experience of women, it's a huge concern across African region, not only in South Africa,